always in Munich at least once. I would stop in, he'd always have something that was of interest. And it was always, Peter, can I look? No, 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 no. Maybe someday. You know, he knew that I knew something was back there, but it was always held at arm's length. And the story about his retirement was always at arm's length as well. Peter was, I guess, old enough to be my father, and one day he would retire, but that one day was going to be dependent on, he had one mechanic. They're about the same age, and whenever his mechanic was going to take his pension was when Peter was going to retire and close down this little repair shop, parts business he had been going for, you know, I don't know, 40 years, maybe 45 years. And my wife and I were scheduled for a Edelweiss tour. Where were we going? I think Italy. Sorry, it was Spain we're headed to. And I got a call from Peter, and he says, the time has come. My mechanic is taking his pension, and I am closing the business. If you're still interested in what's behind the pile of boxes and tires, now is the time. And I said, will you tell me? And he says, no, you have to come see. So that made it fun. So we rearranged our travel schedule. My wife had heard about Peter for some 20-plus years, had never met him, seen pictures of the two of us. And so Suzanne and I went over a couple days early, got to help Peter, got to root through the entire dealership, and finally got to go into the back corner, move all the boxes and all the tires. And this is what was back there under another dilapidated piece of canvas that was probably 50 years old before they threw it over the motorcycle. And battery, gas, and clean the spark plugs, and this thing was running in about 20 minutes. So we took it around the parking lot a couple of times, and same deal. He told me how much he wanted. I said yes. And it went back in the corner. He piled a bunch of tires and boxes in front of it again. And then the story on the crate is sort of interesting, too. I had dealt with one freight forwarder, Spedition as they call them over there, for close to 25 years at that point in time. The senior gentleman, I didn't even know he had a son, and we'd always communicated well. His English was much better than my German, which is almost non-existent. And the drill was that he would always build me solid crates. We'd put a motorcycle in the middle if there was one, and then just wrap everything else up around it. So it was an efficient, economical way to do it. And so I've simply sent a fax off. There's a bunch of stuff at Peter's, including a motorcycle. Please pick it up. And that all takes place. And I keep getting these pro forma invoices that show 2 crates. And I can't figure out why that is. And I'm faxing back, and I finally pick up the phone and call, find out that Mr. Bruner had passed away. His son was now running the business. And completely opposite of what it should have been, his son spoke almost no English. I mean, that's very unusual. The younger generations almost always did. And after going around in circles for literally 3 weeks about how we'd done this before, I finally said, you know, it's coming up on the end of the year. I want to get this stuff over here to ship it. So I ended up with a solid crate with all these parts I had bought from Peter, and an open crate with 2 additional slats that went all the way around. And this showed up, I guess, toward the end of January. And the Timonium Motorcycle Show was in the beginning of February. And we looked at this thing and said, this is going to be fun to share just the way it is. And we hauled it as you see it, with the other slats in place, stuck it in a booth over in the vintage area at the Timonium Motorcycle Show, and all weekend long, people were on their hands and knees, peering through the slats, having a ton of fun. So it was just an enjoyable process. As a result, what year is this I got this thing?
2001.
Okay, so for the last 9+ years, it's been sitting in this box. We took off the slats, and a furniture refinishing friend and customer said that he was going to antique the base. We're going to put some sisal rope in there and eventually make it look more old. But the bottom line is that it's been over here more than we've brought it out to show people. So we're going to get it out of the box today, and it will be the next bike to be elevated up on display and have a little bit of fun with it. And I guess the decision we'll have to make today is whether we clean it up or we leave it dusty. I'm inclined to clean it up because I think by hanging it we're going to have so many fingerprints on this thing that we'll have to clean it up.
See what it looks like.
So at any rate, we're going to get it out of the box, and I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. For all I know, it'll be hanging on the ceiling by the time I come back. So,
you trying to start it?
I'm sorry. Well, I suppose that's a possibility. My only reason for not starting is I know it runs and all that stuff. It got pickled again. To start it up, to only redo that whole process to hang it up, I think is sort of a lot of wasted energy.
But they need to say, there it is hanging up. Last time, 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago? Well,
yeah, you know,
I may leave that entirely in Paul's hands while I'm gone. So.
Better check the odometer.
There is no odometer. So. And I don't think there's a counter on the rear wheel. So. I'll measure the tread depth. Is there any tread depth to measure?
I don't think there'd be much left if you actually wrote it
Oh,
out.
that's,
go far.
that's the,
Wouldn't that dry rot or?
well, yeah, I mean, this is one of the challenges. In fact, one of the decisions we'll have to make because it's going up on a shelf. And part of what keeps them on the shelf, not that the cables, if you look at the R65 LS that's up there, the cables can handle about 1,500 pounds each. We've got two of them on a bike, so there's never any risk of it falling on somebody's head. But as the tires deflate, it changes position a little bit on the shelf. The R57 that's in front of my office came in with a dad tire, and when we used it for a photo shoot about a year and a half ago for a magazine, I decided, okay, put air in, it comes out, so let's replace that tube. What we pulled out of it was an old, 60-year-old red rubber tube with 3 sewn-on glued patches. Okay, I mean, I've saved that because it was a piece by itself. We put another tube in it, but because the tire was in such bad shape, maybe 6-7 weeks ago, we're walking around the shop in the middle of the day, normal business, and it sounded like somebody fired a gun. Wow. That brand new tube finally punctured because there's a 3-inch slit in the tire. So we're gonna have to make a decision. If we show it with these, we may need to put some new tubes in there so it'll keep enough nitrogen to keep the tires intact. But we'll be able to see over the next week how they do. So there we go. Thanks for allowing me to share that story.
Stupid question, but did German reg plates go with the bike, at least historically?
Yes and no. Technically, they're not supposed to go. This was probably the last tag on this bike before Peter tucked it away. So because the bike was coming off, they probably never took it off.
But I mean, if there was an owner-to-owner transfer in the 30s or 40s or whatever, would the tag stay with